You were talking to someone every single day. Good morning texts, late night voice notes, inside jokes that made no sense to anyone else. And then one day they just stopped. No argument, no explanation, no goodbye. They just disappeared. That right there has a name. It is called ghosting. And if you don't know the term, ghosting is when someone you are close to suddenly cuts off all contact with zero warning and zero explanation. No call, no text. They don't block you, they don't fight with you, they just go quiet like a ghost. And the worst part, you are left sitting there asking the same question on repeat. What did I do wrong? Here is what most people never find out. You probably didn't do anything wrong. But understanding the real reason they disappeared, that is what this video is about. And I promise you, it is not what you think. Ghosting has always existed, but today it is easier than ever. You can disappear from someone's life with one tap or just by doing nothing at all. No phone call, no difficult conversations, just silence. And it is happening everywhere, not just with people you met on dating apps. Research from the Journal of Social and Personal Relationship found that over 65% of adults have been ghosted by someone they actually cared about. A close friend, a coworker, sometimes even a family member. But here is the part of that research that almost nobody talks about. Most of the people doing the ghosting are not cold hearted people. Most of them are not cruel. Most of them are scared. And that changes everything because we have always been told the same story about ghosting, that the person who ghosted you is immature, selfish, or just doesn't care. And sometimes that is true. But if you have ever been ghosted by someone who genuinely seemed to like you, who seemed invested, that explanation never felt complete. The first reason is the most common one, and it surprises most people. A lot of ghosting comes from fear of conflict. Now, when we say conflict avoidance, most people think, okay, they are lazy. They don't want an awkward conversation, and that is selfish. But here is what psychology actually shows us. There are two very different types of people who avoid conflict. The first type doesn't care. They ghost because the other person simply doesn't matter to them. They are called dismissive, avoidant people. And walking away is easy because they were never really attached. But the second type, they care too much. In their head, having a simple, honest conversation does not feel simple at all. It feels like a disaster waiting to happen. They imagine you breaking down. They imagine you hating them. They imagine the conversation spreading to the mutual friends. They play out the whole ugly scene in their mind before even they have typed a message. So they don't type anything. Psychologists call this conflict catastrophizing. When someone's brain turns a small uncomfortable conversation into a catastrophe in their imagination. It is often tied to how they grew up. If they learned early on that being honest leads to punishment, their brain learns to avoid honesty altogether. What this means for you when someone ghosted you? They may have been more emotionally overwhelmed. The silence wasn't them not caring, it was them knowing how to handle caring. This one doesn't get talked about enough. Sometimes ghosting has nothing to do with you, it is about them being ashamed of who they were around you. Here is how it happens: someone open up to you, they share something personal. Maybe they were too vulnerable too fast, or they said something they later regretted, or they acted needy in a way that embarrassed them. And instead of facing that discomfort, instead of just moving forward normally, they run. Because in their mind, you now hold a version of them they don't like. And every time they think about texting you, they feel that shame again. So they stop texting altogether. Clinical psychologist Dr. Janice Wilhor describes this as people essentially ghosting their own shame, where you become a reminder of a side of themselves they are not comfortable with. So they don't cut you off because they don't like you. They cut you off because they don't like who they became around you. If someone ever ghosted you right after a really deep or emotional conversation, right after they opened up, this is almost certainly what happened. It was not the closeness that pushed them away, it was their inability to handle being seen. This one is about something bigger than one person. Before smartphones, ghosting someone took real effort. You had to actively ignore calls, avoid places, make up stories to mutual friends, and effort required made people stop and think. But today, the effort is zero. And behavioral psychology has a simple principle: the easier something is to do, the less guilty people feel doing it. Think about for a second. When ghosting became as easy as just not replying, it stopped feeling like abandonment. It stopped feeling like a decision at all. It just felt like not doing something. Researchers call this the digital diffusion of responsibility. Screens create distance between us and the consequences of our actions. When you can't see someone's face, when you can't hear their voice, the emotional weight of hurting them simply doesn't register the same way. This is why a person who would never walk away from you mid conversation in real life will leave your message on read for 2 weeks and sleep just fine. It is not that they are a monster. The technology removes the feeling of responsibility. This does not excuse the behavior, but it explains where it comes from. Now let's talk about you, because this part matters. Being ghosted does not just hurt emotionally, it physically hurts. Neuroscientist Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA ran brain scans on people experiencing social rejection. What she found was striking. Social rejection activates the exact same parts of the brain as physical pain. When someone ghosts you, your brain processes it the same way it processes being punched. But ghosting is actually more painful than a direct rejection. When someone tells you clearly this is not working, your brain can process that. There is a story, there is a beginning and an end. You can grieve and start to heal. But ghosting gives your brain nothing to work with. So your brain, which always need to make sense of things, starts making things up. Did I say something? Are they okay? Was any of it even real? This is called Zeigarnik Effect, a psychological principle that says our brain holds onto unfinished things far longer than finished ones. The loop never closes, so your brain keeps running it. That is why ghosting can hurt you for months. That is why a clean breakup, as painful as it is, often heals faster. It is not that you are weak, it is that your brain was never given what it needed to heal. And now, the part most people skip. When someone ghosts us, we spend all of our energy focused on them. Why did they do it? What were they thinking? Did they ever care? But the more powerful question, the one that actually leads to healing, is this: why does their silence have this much power over me? Attachment theory gives us the answer. How we react to being ghosted almost always connects back to our own attachment style, the emotional blueprint we developed in childhood. People with secure attachment style feel hurt by ghosting. Of course they do, but they can sit with the discomfort. They don't lose their sense of self. They move forward. People with anxious attachment style experience something different. The silence does not just sting, it confirms something they have always feared deep down. I am too much. I am not enough. I don't deserve an explanation. But here is what you need to understand: that voice is not the ghoster talking. That is an old worm talking. That is the echo of every person in your past who ever made you feel like you were not the worth showing up for. The ghoster just happened to press a button that was already there. And knowing that, recognizing where that wound actually comes from, that is where real healing begins. Not from finally getting a reply, from realizing the reply was never what you truly needed. Before you go, I want to ask you something. Out of those five reasons, which one hit you the most? Have you ever ghosted someone and recognized yourself in one of those patterns? Or have you been ghosted and finally found a word for what happened? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one.